What is going on, everybody? This is your man, Big B, Brian Hanley. Welcome to Steelers Almighty. Appreciate everybody being in here, everybody showing up, man. Thank you guys for being here for Steelers Almighty Rants at Night. So, got a good show for you guys today. Got a couple of things that we need to get off our chest and talk to you guys about. First things first, Myles Garret asking for a trade from those good old Cleveland Browns. What does that look like? Then Roman Wilson. Like, what has happened to Roman Wilson? Like, what happened to him this year? What are our expectations moving forward for next year? Is he going to be in the mix at all? We'll talk a little bit about that. And then, look, by all accounts, it's the word has gotten out. The Steelers are leaning towards Justin Fields. Obviously, it depends on who you want to believe. Russell Wilson saying one thing that he's concentrating on coming back to the Steelers. Reports from several different sources out there saying that the Steelers actually prefer to have Justin Fields first. It's just got to be a make sense contract. So we're going to talk about all of that and more. So appreciate you guys being in here. Remember, like, follow, subscribe, continue to get in the comments. If you want your comment, your question, or your rant up on stage or on the screen, you know exactly how to do that. Super chats are wide open. And don't forget, memberships are also available. If you want membership content, the higher you go, the more content and access that you get. So I appreciate everybody being in here, man. So let's get into this. So first things first, Myles Garret, man. Myles Garret asking for a trade from the Cleveland Browns. I know a lot of Steeler fans don't want to say it. Myles Garret is very good, people. He was better this year than TJ Watt, if we're being honest with ourselves. He just was. And that's okay to say. That's not a slight to TJ. But Myles Garret is the real deal. He's the real deal. Now, the one thing you could say is Myles Garret does all this on a team that doesn't compete. You know, their team is terrible and they don't compete to win anything. So there's that. But they use Myles Garret in a way in Cleveland that I so wish the Steelers would incorporate. They move Myles Garret all over the line. He's at left end, right end, tackled, nose. He does twists and stunts. They use him, so you just can't predict where he's going to be. I've seen Myles Garret stand up over a guard before the snap and act like he's dribbling the ball between his legs, and then he goes and twists and does this. I've seen him do everything, man. I've seen him do everything. I so wish the Steelers used TJ Watt that way. And also, part of that's TJ Watt, too, not wanting to do that. But make no mistake, Myles Garret is incredible. I don't know what that means to the Steelers. Will he get traded? I don't know. I kind of feel like the Browns are going to Brown. That, you know what I'm saying? Like, the Browns are going to Brown, that he's going to screw it up. Just like he always does. Let's get to our first super chat. My man Alonzo Dunn. He says Myles Garret does the Aaron Donald. Love to have him. Yeah. I mean, now there is no chance that the Cleveland Browns are going to trade him to the Pittsburgh Steelers. There is a 0.00 chance that is going to happen. But if it did, I would absolutely love it. I would love to have him. Let me ask this question, and let's see what you guys think, and we'll come back to it. What if Cleveland said, "Hey, we'll trade you Myles Garret for TJ Watt straight up, no draft picks, no nothing"? What would you do? It just say, "Hey, TJ Watt for Myles Garret right now. No, nothing else involved. Just for those two guys." What would you do? Would you take it? I mean, it's a question you have to think about. Now, I know there's a lot of us diehard Steeler fans are out there. Hell no. But really? I mean, really? Would you just say no? That's something to think about. That would be something to think about. That's why I asked that question. Is like, that's tough. That is tough. I love TJ, but yeah, man, Myles Garrett is that good. He really is. He's that good. So if it came down to it, would you just say no? Or would you have to think about it? I'd have to think about it. I'd have to think about it. They're the same age. It came in the league at the same time. Um, so that would be an interesting question. Very interesting question. So, ugh. I don't. Matter of fact, I don't even want to think about it. I don't want to think about it because I don't want to know what my answer would be. I just don't want to do it. But where do you guys think that he could land? Like, where's a good landing spot for Myles Garrett? First of all, if Cleveland is smart, which we know they're not, but Cleveland's got to trade him to the NFC. They got to get him out of the AFC. So the chances of you facing him go way, way down. You got to get him out of the AFC, preferably to a team that Cleveland doesn't have to play in the next couple of years. You know, where would a good landing spot for him be? I heard reports about San Francisco. I'm like, he can't go to San Francisco. San Francisco is already paying too many defensive guys, and they're about to have to pay a quarterback. They can't afford to do all of that. They're gonna have to gut their roster. So San Francisco isn't. LA might be though. I mean, the Rams might be a good spot. He's not gonna want it now. Granted, he doesn't get to choose where he goes, but he wouldn't want to go to the Cardinals. I wouldn't want to go there, and maybe not even Seattle. I'm not sure he'd want to go there. Um, but I don't know. I don't know. So it'd be the landing spots for him would be a plenty. Washington might be a spot. The Commanders may be a spot. Um, I don't dislike Myles Garrett because I know how good he is. I just respect him. But yeah, the Commanders might be a spot. No, not Dallas, Mr. Alonzo Dunn, not Dallas. Dallas. I wouldn't wish anybody to go to Dallas. And don't get me wrong, I can't stand the Browns. I think the Browns are the laughing stock of the National Football League. But I wouldn't even wish anybody to go to the Dallas to go to that circus. I mean, and he's from Dallas. So it would be a homecoming for him because he's from Dallas. But even then, I think that he would be like, yeah, I don't want to come here. I don't want to be a part of that. So interesting, though, that he asked for a trade. I think he's done with the losing. And they have no pain. And that's the thing. Cleveland has no path forward. They owe Mr. Massage Man, they owe him $92 million over the next 2 years. Deshaun Watson, $92 million guaranteed dollars over the next 2 years. Now, they're going to try to get out of it because they're going to say that he tore his Achilles this second time and he wasn't wearing a boot when he was supposed to be, and they're going to try to get out of it. They're not going to be able to get out of it. They're going to have to pay him. Even if it gets, I don't know, let's just say they settle on an amount. It'll be upwards of $80 million. $80 million for Deshaun Watson over 2 years. Golly. But that's the Browns. That's what the Browns do. So, but yeah, that's kind of what I thought, it is what Cleveland. I just wanted to ask you all those couple of questions about Myles Garrett. I think it's fascinating that number one, he asked for the trade. Number two, where he might end up. But number three, if the Steelers said, hey, we'll trade you TJ Watt for Myles Garrett straight up, would you do it? I know there's some more people in here right now, and that's the question that I'm going to ask. If the Steelers called the Browns and said, we will trade you TJ Watt for Myles Garrett straight up, would you do it? You can't just come in because there's people in here saying that TJ Watt's a first ballot Hall of Famer. I just want to let you know, so is Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett is absolutely a first ballot Hall of Famer. So if it's a tough question. And my thing is, I don't like the Browns. I think the Browns are the laughing stock. But I respect Myles Garrett. I do, because I know how good he is. I know what he does to us when he plays us. I mean, we have trouble dealing with him. And if we were to say, "Hey, straight up, what do you want? Will you take it?" I don't know, man. I literally, I just don't know. I don't know. Um, oh, now that's good, a good point. Saying no because the Steelers would play him at linebacker. Now that is hilarious because you know what? You're probably right. You're probably right. The Steelers would get Myles Garrett and they would say, Myles Garrett's so athletic. We're going to play him at safety. We're going to play him at free safety, because they won't expect it. That would be Mike Tomlin at his finest. They won't expect him to play free safety. So we'll throw him back there, and trick everybody. Ugh, unbelievable. Super chat from our man, Mr. Alonzo Dunn. Myles can play the middle. He's heavier than TJ by 40 pounds. Myles is more versatile. Yes, he is. He's all of that. And the more versatile, it's again, the Steelers scheme that doesn't move TJ Watt around. And also, TJ doesn't want to move around. So we blame the coaches a lot for not moving them around, which it's their fault because they should just say, TJ, you got to move around. We got to have you in different spots. But TJ's also got to be willing to go to those different spots. So it's crazy. It's crazy. So that would be tough, man. That would be tough. You know what I'm saying? To figure out that trade. If the Steelers called or if the Browns called us and say, hey, man, what do you think? Will you take him? Because Myles Garrett's saying he wants to win. I don't know how close the Steelers are winning the Super Bowl, but they're a hell of a lot closer than the Cleveland Browns are. Would that make the Steelers defense better? There's another question. Let's just say that trade happened. Is the Steelers defense better? My thing is, I still say no because the schematics of it all. The Steelers aren't going to use Myles Garrett like Myles Garrett gets used right now. They won't do that. And since they won't, doesn't make a whole lot of sense to have them. So, doesn't make a whole lot of sense to have them. So, man, we'll see. We'll see. But yeah, no, I would say no. Lamont, damn right. Rather have Myles on one side and TJ on the other. Absolutely. Absolutely. Let me ask you guys, you Steeler fans, this question, and we'll get on to the next topic. Let's just say the Steelers could trade for Myles Garrett. Would you be willing to do that? Now, here's the thing. Myles Garrett's got 2 years, no guaranteed money left on his contract. So you got to give him an extension. And we want to spend money on the offensive side of the football. If we could keep TJ and we can extend both of them, would you make the trade? Now, here's the trade. You're probably going to have to give up a first-round pick, and then you're probably going to have to give up at least a third-round pick. So are you willing to give up a first and a third to get Myles Garrett? If you're asking me that question, I'm saying yes before you even get it out of your mouth. If Cleveland called and say you can have Myles for a first and a third, yes, we'll take it. In this draft, I would say yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So, got to do it. Got to do it. Because then you're gambling that the first and the third round pick that you're going to draft is going to be at least as good as what Myles Garrett has done or will be. And I wouldn't be willing to take that chance. I know what I got in Myles Garrett. That's who I would be going with. So just things to think about. I'm not saying that I've heard that or there's any rumors. No. I'm just throwing that hypothetical out to you guys on what you think. If that was a possibility. Because it is. I mean, it could happen. So, it could happen. Man, Alonzo Dunn says he might forego the first 3 rounds for Myles. I don't know if I'd do that, but whew, that's giving up a lot. I don't know that I would do the first 3 rounds. You could have 2 of them, 2 of the first 3, but I wouldn't even say the first 2. You could have my first and a third, but that again, Myles Garret would help, but he's not our only hole. You know, we're not Myles Garret away from winning the Super Bowl. Now we're Myles Garret from being a dominant defense because having him and TJ would help so much on the back end. But we're not just Myles Garret from saying we're going to win the Super Bowl. Because if we were, just call Cleveland and offer them whatever you need to offer them. So, but I get it. I get it. Let's move on, people. Let's move on. Roman Wilson. Like, what the hell happened to Roman Wilson this year? Like, where was he? He did absolutely nothing. A 3rd-round pick doing absolutely nothing for the Steelers this year. And to be quite honest, the Steelers took Roman Wilson thinking that he's going to be able to help them in the passing game and in the running game. They took Roman Wilson thinking he's going to be a contributor this season. And he was not. He was not a contributor. Now, part of it, he was hurt. I get it. But he did nothing for the Steelers this year. And it was quite sickening, to be honest with you. It was sickening. Mike Tomlin gave up on him pretty quick. And you never really hear Mike Tomlin come out and do that, especially with a rookie. And he did. We're moving on. We're working with the guys that are with us. You know, he could have easily just said, hey, Roman's hurt. I go, when he gets back, he'll be a part of what we got going on. He's got a bright future. Mike Tomlin didn't say any of that. He said nothing. All he said was, we're moving on without him. I'm like, well, damn. And then you start hearing, well, he couldn't get the playbook. And I'm like, well, that's troubling that he can't figure out the playbook. But I don't know. I don't know if that's what it is, or if Mike Tomlin just got frustrated with him getting hurt, coming back, then getting hurt again, and it's soft tissue stuff. But you can't blame people for getting hurt. Now, maybe you can blame him because he didn't take his rehab that serious. He kept missing rehab appointments. If there was something like that, okay. And Mike Tomlin's not necessarily going to tell us that. You know, that he's missing rehab. He's not taking it serious, so he can't get back out there. He's not going to tell you that. But for all intents and purposes, Tomlin gave up on him quickly and just moved on. And for me, that's troubling. That's troubling. I think they felt like they wasted a pick. Maybe he's going to do something this year. Like, what's his role going to be? So what's he going to be like? He's definitely not going to be wide receiver 2. You know, you were thinking that, hey, Roman Wilson, he's going to come in. He'll be wide receiver probably 4 to start off the season. And as the season goes on, maybe he can work himself in to wide receiver 2, definitely have Calvin Austin in the slot, and then maybe you have something. Well, that didn't materialize in 2024. It was Roman Wilson's not going to be with us. We still don't have a wide receiver 2, and we're going into this offseason without a wide receiver 2, which is troubling, especially when you supposedly waste a 3rd-round pick. Let me say this. When you use a 3rd-round pick on a guy, that's what I would think. Tomlin felt jilted, says our man Alonzo Dunn. Yeah, he very well might have. He might feel jilted. I can see that. I can see that. So, My man Russ, going back to Garret, said him and TJ wouldn't coexist. Yeah, they would. They absolutely would. You know how much easier it would be for both of them if they were on the same line? Huh. Whew, so much easier. But we can come back to that. But yeah, what's going on with Roman Wilson? I think the Steelers have moved on, and now they're saying, "Hey, Roman Wilson, if you want to be a part of this organization, you got to catch up because you wasted a year. You were hurt. We were counting on you, and now you got to catch up. And we are going to draft and free agent over top of you. So figure it out." I think that's where the Steelers kind of are with it. And I think Mike Tomlin kind of told us that. It's we're going to draft over top of you and we're going to free agent over top of you, and you better catch up. That's the way I look at it. So that's the way I look at it. I think that would be a fair assessment of where the Steelers are with Roman Wilson right now. So, and it was a huge letdown as far as that. It just nothing that he did said, yeah, this guy's going to be good. I mean, he never got on the field. Like, we got nothing from him. Literally nothing from this third round pick that we thought was going to help us. You know, and in NFL, third rounders, those are guys that you're counting on that season to help you. You know, without a catastrophic injury, which he didn't have, those are guys that you're counting on to produce. And he gave the Steelers nothing. Like, literally nothing. Disappointing. And where do you see him next year? I mean, like I said, he's going to start out the season at wide receiver 4 at best because they'll keep Pickens, if they keep Pickens. And then they got Calvin Austin. He's ahead of him. They kind of play the same position anyway. Wide receiver 2, the Steelers are going to draft and go free agency with somebody. So those guys are going to be ahead of him. So it's like, where does he even fit in? You know, we'll see. My man Alonzo Dunn with the super chat. Do you think the Steelers draft a wide receiver in the first round? It's either a wide receiver or a defensive lineman. One of the two. Obviously, you don't know exactly where things are going to end up with the draft because you know how the draft can be that somebody picks somebody and then a run of a certain position goes, so you never know. It could be D-line this year because it's deep, or it could be wide receiver because it's not as deep and they want to get the best ones out early. So I don't know. To me, it depends on what the Steelers do in free agency. It depends on what they do in free agency. And I think that'll kind of tell us what the Steelers are going to do with the first round. Now, again, obviously you don't know. But I think the Steelers got to get a D lineman in the first round. I do. If it's there, I think you do that. And then there's other receivers, maybe not the biggest names, but I think you got to go D line. I do. Steelers got to get younger. They got to get better at defensive line. Stop the run, get after the quarterback, all of that stuff. But it's hard because they got to have a receiver so bad. I think they almost have to take 2 receivers in the first 4 rounds, and they need a running back too, which you got to get a running back in the first 4 rounds. You can't go past that. So it's tough, man. It's tough. Very tough. So now here's a good question. Somebody says, why do Steeler fans continue to ask for a wide receiver while begging for Justin Fields? GP was not happy with his passing. Well, GP was fine, I think, with his passing. First of all, we don't even know that the Steelers are going to keep George Pickens. That would be the first thing. Now, I think they are. I don't think there's any way that they're going to trade him. But he was fine with Fields passing. Hell, Fields threw him the ball. You know, he threw the football to him. And deep down the field, he gave him opportunities. So he was fine with it. The offense has to be centered more for George Pickens. But I think that's a good question. Good, solid question. I strongly suggest the Casey Hampton, Benton, and Cam. And Mr. Dunn, I'm not sure what you mean. Um, I'm sure you're talking about a Casey Hampton type. Well, yeah, the Steelers got to get a nose tackle for sure. And we'll see who's there. We'll see who's there. You know, we will definitely see who's there. Here's a question. O'Brien, if you think Garret and TJ get along, would love it. We need to make enough cuts to sign 5 elite free agents, keep Fields. We can spend $60 million. I mean, I'm not saying that that's a realistic reality by any means. All I'm saying is, if it were to happen, TJ Watt and Myles Garrett would 1,000,000% get along. You think that a defensive lineman is not going to like another elite defensive lineman playing the opposite of him? They don't have to be best friends, but they would love to play on the same line together. Now, is that a realistic possibility? No. No, it's not. So, Fields threw 1 touchdown pass to a wide receiver in 6 games. Okay, a lot of that was scheme, though. I think you would agree. One of them got called back. Actually, 2 got called back. So, there's that. And it's not just touchdown passes that we're talking about. It's not just touchdown passes that we're talking about. I'm not saying Fields is the answer. All I'm saying is we're talking about Justin Fields not throwing the ball to George Pickens. He did. He did throw the ball to him. So we'll see, though. We'll see what happens. But Roman Wilson, for instance, what does a wide receiver room look like in Pittsburgh next year? So I think they still got to keep George Pickens. I was talking about trading him. They're not going to do that because I think their thinking is we got him for at least the next 2 years, so there's no trade for Pickens happening. He's the best offensive weapon that you got. You're not trading it. Okay, I get it now. Let's move on from that. You bring in Fields. It is what it is if that's who they want. So, I mean, it is what it is. But what else? Austin, Roman Wilson. I think they got to bring in a free agent and draft a guy, maybe 2 guys that can contribute as far as wide receivers. That's what I think. No more stopgaps of the Van Jeffersons just because Van Jefferson can block. Nope, I'm sorry. And I know he made a couple of plays. But what would you rather have? Would you rather have a guy that can block in the run game and make a few plays all season, or would you rather have a guy have 35 catches for 425 yards and 4 touchdowns? I think that's an easy answer. That's who I would rather have as my number 3 receiver. That's what I would rather have. So Van Jefferson was fine. Van Jefferson is not what we need moving forward. Not what we need moving forward. Lonzo Dunn says Cooper Kupp said that the Rams are trading him. Do the Steelers want to trade for Cooper Kupp? He makes a lot of money. So I don't know. I don't know if we'd want to trade for him or not. But I know this. I wouldn't mind having him on my football team. He's been hurt the last few years. But if we could get Cooper Kupp, I would take him. Yep, I would absolutely take him. So, my man Tyrone, Xavier Respro. I don't know how to pronounce his name. The receiver out of Miami. He's really good, but he's a slot guy. We don't need another slot guy. We need a wide receiver too. He's not that. Not in the NFL. Not saying he won't be good in the NFL, but we need a bigger guy. That's all I'm saying. Let's go get Tyreek Hill. Sure. Let's go get it. Trade for Joseph Donovan, or trade for My man Joseph Donovan said trade for Garrett Wilson. Look, the thing about Garrett Wilson is they're talking about a first-round pick for Garrett Wilson. Would you guys be okay with that? The Steelers gave up a first to get Garrett Wilson. If Justin Fields is your quarterback, it's dicey, but maybe. Anything's got to be better. And at some point, number one, you got to pay people. And number two, you got to give up some picks for real talent. And that's what I'm saying as far as real talent is that Garrett Wilson is a real talent. And he's proven to be good with some bad quarterback play. Like Zach Wilson was his quarterback, still getting 1,000 yards. So he's made it happen with the Jets with like I said, with some bad quarterbacks, bad quarterback systems, offensive system altogether. So I wouldn't be opposed to it. And he's young. It's not like that Garrett Wilson is 30 years old. He's young. So a first-round pick for a proven NFL talent that's young at wide receiver, yeah, I'd do it. I'd absolutely do it. I don't see why you wouldn't. I don't see why you couldn't if that's what the Jets said. The Jets said, yeah, it'll take a first-rounder. Okay, you can have this one. I would do it in a heartbeat. And the Steelers would be foolish if they didn't. They would be absolutely be foolish if they didn't. So that's another thing that we got to take a look at and see. Moving on, man. Let's talk a little bit about Justin Fields. So the talk at the Senior Bowl is that the Steelers are leaning towards bringing Justin Fields back, that he is the quarterback that they want to sign. Art Rooney II said they'd like to have Fields or Russell Wilson. The rumor mill with sources everywhere are saying that the Steelers prefer Fields. Now, if you hear Russell Wilson talk, Russell Wilson is saying, well, my focus right now is to come back with the Steelers. That just might be talk to try to drive the price up with the Raiders. His agent may be telling him, hey, man, just say you want to focus on the Steelers right now so that the Raiders up the price to try to get you. That's kind of what I think that is. Because I think Russell Wilson ends up in Las Vegas. And the Steelers are wanting to bring back Fields. If not, then, look, there's a ton of Mike Tomlin bashing going on. And I try to defend him as much as I could when it's warranted. When it's not, I just let it be because y'all know how I feel about Tomlin. Change your philosophy of football. I'm tired of it. But Mike Tomlin has screamed for years that he wants a mobile quarterback. Well, you got one staring you in the face. Now, is it competent mobile quarterback ability? I don't know that we really know that yet. I really don't. I don't know that we know that it's competent quarterback play. But you do have one. So if that's what you want, see what you got and let it go. You don't have to give Justin Fields a $25 million contract either. You don't have to do that. Owners are fighting back all over the place now. The Steelers need to do the same. Hey, we'll give you a prove-it deal. You go prove that you can win, and we will give you a deal after that. But unless you prove to us that you can win and that you can play competent football, we're not giving you, 35, 40, $45 million for 4 years. That's just not going to happen. We got to see something competent out of you. And if we do, then we'll go there. If we don't, then we won't. My man S. Dresden is in the chat. Thank you for joining us today, my man. He comes in hot, says, I think it's highly unlikely Russell Wilson will be a starter anywhere in the league this upcoming season. I don't think that. The only reason I say that, Dresden, is because there is so much bad quarterback play in the National Football League. Russell Wilson still has a place. I firmly believe that. I get exactly what you're saying. But I think that the quarterback play is so bad across the league that there is still a place for Russell Wilson to start. Hell, there was a place for him to start this year. So if there was a place this year, there'll be another place next year. There absolutely will be. So I do get what you're saying. I do get what you're saying. So Alonzo says the Bears gave Justin some playmakers. Who? What? They gave him DJ Moore and who else? They didn't do that. Like this year, they gave Caleb Williams. They went out and got Caleb Williams a ton of playmakers. But you know what they didn't do? They didn't upgrade the line, and he was horrible. So it wasn't all Justin Fields like everybody tried to make it out to be. I'm not saying that it wasn't partly him, but it wasn't, oh, well, it was all Fields, and once you got him out of there and got some weapons, no, that wasn't the case. That wasn't the case at all. Now, here's an argument. My man Alonzo Dunn says he thinks that Russ is top 25. I mean, he might be. He might be. I mean, I don't want to go through the names, but is there 9 quarterbacks, 8 quarterbacks better than him? Or is he at the bottom of that is what I should say. Clearly, there's 8 quarterbacks better than him. But there's 32 teams. 25, that means there's 7 below that. Is there? I think there is. I think there is. So, I think there is. My man Dresden comes in, says Roman Wilson's 5'11", 180, and does nothing better than Calvin Austin. Not sold at all that he will even be an impact player. Mr. Dresden, I 1,000% agree with you. We were talking about that earlier. I don't know what he brings to the table, and Mike Tomlin gave up on him. Even the Mike Tomlin haters agree with this one. Even the people that can't stand what Mike Tomlin does, they're like, look, he gave up on him so fast that Mike Tomlin will give you an opportunity. And he gave up on him so fast that it's like, well, damn, if he gives up on him, then maybe he can't play. So I would love for him to prove everybody wrong. I would love if Roman Wilson were able to do that. But so far, we've seen nothing. We've seen nothing. And the coaching staff, like, they could have activated him at any time, and they didn't. They were just like, no, not that he can't help us. He can't help us. And that's what's got to be so disappointing. A 3rd-round pick, and he's healthy, and he can't help us. Gee, many Christmas. Versus guys that you brought off the street, Ben Skoranek, Scotty Miller, these guys, and you can't get on the field ahead of them? Whew. That's brutal. That's brutal. And that's my whole thing is like, look, we get on Tomlin for this and that, and we should. But Lord have mercy. When he's saying he can't help us, we'd rather have these guys, that's a problem for me. So that's a problem for me. But Justin Fields, it looks like the Steelers are leaning that direction. It looks like that's where they're leaning. I don't know if it's good or bad, but that's where it looks like that they are leaning in that direction. But here's what I'll say, and you guys have said it a million times. I'm not telling you anything new. If the Steelers are going to let Justin Fields be the quarterback, and that's what they want, then the kid gloves have to come off, and they have to allow him to play aggressive football, which is something that they didn't allow him to do in any of the 6 starts, except for the one game against Indianapolis when we got behind by so much, and they were like, look, we need you to throw the ball to get us back in the game. And guess what he did? He got us back in the game. Now, you could say he cost us the game because he fumbled the snap at the end. Okay. But he did get the Steelers back in the game. I mean, I don't have any doubt if that fumbled snap doesn't happen, I think the Steelers go down and score a touchdown and we end up winning that game. I really believe that. but you've got to allow him to play. Because if you're not going to allow him to play, then what's the point? Now, y'all see this up here from Fox Sports. They had Russ at number 16 as far as the quarterbacks this year. Steeler fans, was Russell Wilson the number 16 quarterback in the National Football League this year? Ahead of Kyler, Brock Purdy, Tua, Dak, Bryce. Oh, I don't know. I don't know. Man. Yeah, I don't know, man. Whew. Super chat from our man Alonzo Dunn. Justin threw the ball a lot more in Chicago. Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did. And it didn't always look great, but no, he did. And he had a pretty good connection with DJ Moore. And as much as I like George Pickens, DJ Moore is a better receiver than George Pickens is. Not more talented, but he's a better receiver. So, then man, I just it's tough for me, man. It's tough for me because I want Fields to be so good. I said it at the beginning when we got him. I said Justin Fields needs to win the job because if he won the job, then he would be the Steelers quarterback for the next decade. But the problem is that they never gave him a real opportunity to win the job. And then I absolutely hated what Fields came out and said, well, I didn't do enough to win the job. And I'm like, well, dang, man. And I get being a good teammate, but hey, coach made his decision. I support Russell 100%. My job was to get us as many victories as possible and play good football. And I did that. I felt like I did that. Just say that. Don't come back and act defeated and say, well, I didn't do a good enough job to win. I respect the honesty, but I didn't like it. I didn't like it. I really didn't. I didn't like it. So I thought there could have been more. So super chat from my man. We need the mobility in the North. Yeah, I think we do. I think you're right, Mr. Dunn. I think we need the mobility. So look, a lot of you guys weren't in here, and I'll say this again, and I'll ask this question. We were talking about Myles Garret at the top of the show. I'm going to ask you guys this question. If Cleveland Browns called the Pittsburgh Steelers today and said, there's two questions I want to ask, but I want to start with this first one. Cleveland Browns call the Steelers today and say, hey, we got Myles Garret. We want to trade you Myles Garret for TJ Watt straight up. No draft picks, no other players, no nothing. Just, we want TJ. We want to give you Myles Garret. Do you guys do it? We asked that earlier. It was a mixed bag in here, people. I'll admit it was a mixed bag. You know, it wasn't just, yeah, I'll do it. It wasn't just hell no. It was a mixed bag. And I'll be honest, I would have to think for a second. Now, look, the problem is my fandom. My hatred, not even my hatred for the Browns. The Browns are just so irrelevant. But if you're saying no, why? Like, why are you saying no? Because it isn't like Myles Garret, number one, he had a better year than TJ Watt did this year. And it's not like that Myles Garret is a bad football player. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. And is it just, well, I don't want to trade TJ? Is that the only reason? Is it because I want TJ to be a Steeler for life? I can live with that. But why? I don't know, man. I don't know. My man Self-Made says we have the better guy. Do we? I mean, you didn't know that this year. Myles was better than TJ this year. But TJ was beat up. So But again, it ain't like the problem is, and what a lot of people did say is, it doesn't matter if we had Myles here or not. The Steelers aren't going to use him the way that Cleveland uses him, by lining him up all over the line, letting him do a lot of different things, giving him the flexibility. The Steelers wouldn't allow him to do that. So then you're taking away his versatility, which is part of why he's so good. That part I agree with. My man S. Dresden here with a super chat. Emeka is my pick this year, but I'm starting to think Tyler Warren might be more explosive player for Fields. And his physicality is impressive. No, you're definitely right. You're definitely right. We talked about that as far as the first pick, but we'll see. They might go D-line. So, but yeah, that's what I'm interested. I'm interested. Nah, some people are saying that TJ's more of a team player. You don't know that. That's not true. Myles Garret has been in Cleveland for years and suffered for years. So you can't say that he's not a team player, man. You can't say that. So, super chat by our man Joshua Bailey. We appreciate you supporting the channel. Trenches need a rebuild on both sides. I have a couple QBs, O-line, and D-linemen I want to get your draft grades on. Okay. Yeah, Dresden, that's exactly what people earlier were saying, is that they would find that Tomlin would find a way. I said it. Somebody said that they would play Myles Garret at linebacker, and I said that no, Tomlin would put him at free safety and say that nobody would suspect him being back there. You know, we would trick everybody. He'd put him at free safety. Oh, the problem is we're only half joking when we say stuff like that. So, but I don't know. That's a good question, though. It's a good question. But part of the reason that Myles Garret is so good is his versatility to play up and down the line. In Pittsburgh, they don't do that. They don't do that. So, and would you trust the Steelers to do that, knowing that one of his biggest strengths is that he can rush from anywhere? Would you trust the Steelers to do that? You know, it's a good question. The next one I had about Myles Garret was, if Cleveland called and said, we'll give you a first and a third round pick, would you take Myles Garret right now? Like, nobody, no players. If they just said, we'll trade you a first and a third, you give us a first and a third, you can have Myles Garret. My answer to that was, before they could even get the third out of their mouth, I would say yes. I would say yes. Hey, Steelers, you want a first and a third? Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't think there's any question that we would do that. So, I don't think there's any question. So, now here's a saying that Myles has no pressure. He plays in a perennial F football team. I get it. He doesn't compete for anything. But that's not his fault, is it? Like, for instance, Cleveland was pretty good last year. I think we'd all recognize that the Browns were pretty good last year. They won 11 football games and went to the playoffs. He was the defensive player of the year. Now, I thought TJ Watt deserved it over him, but it doesn't mean that Myles shouldn't have been in the running. And he played some damn good football. So to say that he doesn't compete for anything, that's not his fault. I mean, yeah, you can't blame him for that. It's just like, look at Dallas this year. Dallas was pathetic, but that doesn't mean that Micah Parsons wasn't any good. You know, I think we're leaning into the Browns sucking more than actual play on this Myles Garret thing. Didn't Myles lead and number one defense a year ago? There you go, Alonzo Dunn. Yes, he did. He absolutely did. I think people are just thinking that Cleveland sucks, and trust me, there's no bigger person than that says Cleveland sucks than me. Nobody else says it more because I think they're the laughing stock of the NFL. But Myles Garrett, I mean, he's that guy, people. We can like TJ better. You can believe that TJ's better. But that doesn't mean that Myles Garrett ain't that guy. We gotta stop doing that. We gotta stop doing that. And I know what the feelings are. I get it. But Myles Garrett is, you might think that TJ's better. Myles Garrett is on his level. He is 100% on his level. And there's nothing wrong with saying that, though. That's the thing. Like, there's nothing wrong with saying that Myles Garrett is on TJ Watt's level. Now, doesn't mean that you don't think that TJ's better. I personally think that he is. But that doesn't mean that Myles Garrett ain't there. Just like Micah Parsons. Doesn't mean that he ain't there. Although Parsons doesn't play the run that well. He played a little better this year, but still not to the level of those two guys. Not near the level of those two guys. So, but there's that. There's that. So, what questions you all got, man? Let's go through some. No, I wouldn't trust the Steelers defensive coaching staff with cleaning my driveway. Now stop it. Just stop it. Oh, goodness. We're officially off the rails, people. We are officially off the rails. But what do y'all think about Justin Fields, man? Do you think that he's the guy that the Steelers need to have? I mean, obviously there's some other stuff out there, but with all things considered, because I'm not a guy that says, I'm not running right out to go pay Sam Darnold $50 million a year. I just wouldn't do that. Like if Sam Darnold said, I want to be a Steeler, I don't want to go anywhere else but Pittsburgh, but you have to pay me $50 million a year, I would say no. He hasn't done enough for me. Not near enough for me. So with what we have to work with and where we're picking in the draft, I just think Fields is the guy. So I just think Fields is the guy. So he's the guy that they need to bring back. Give him some weapons. Give him some flexibility within the offense. Let Fields cook a little bit. So my man Dresden said, I'd be interested in what we could get from Atlanta with a package deal of Highsmith and Pickens. The Mike Green kid out of Marshall might be the boogeyman. He might be. He might be. Here's the thing with Highsmith. Now, I'm coming out with a series of position by position. You guys are going to like it because I break down each position on what the Steelers are doing, what they should do, and who they should let go, like free agents, who they might go after. I'm doing a position breakdown of each one of those. So that'll be out soon. We're in the works of putting that together, producing it all. You guys are going to like that series of offense, defense, D-line, O-line, secondary, all that stuff. And we're breaking all that down to give that to you guys. The thing about Alex Highsmith, I will let this cat out of the bag because this is not trade secrets. You can't trade Alex Highsmith this year before the draft. Like, you can't get draft capital for him because it's a $16 million cap hit if you do. After June 1st, you can do it. Now, maybe you can designate a trade after June 1st. You might be able to do that. So if you can, you would. But if you can't designate it, I know you can designate a cut after June 1st, but if you can designate a trade after June 1st, then okay, then it makes sense. Otherwise, you have to wait till June 1st to trade Highsmith because after June 1st, you save $13 million on the cap. But if it's before June 1st, it's a $16 million cap hit of dead money. Then it doesn't make sense at that point. So I'm with you, Dresden, as far as the Highsmith deal, but I don't know. I mean, like I said, you can't trade him. So you can't trade him. But we'll see. We will see. Question here. Do you think we'll go after a cornerback in the first or second round if Jackson walks in free agency? Well, first off, I'm not afraid to let Jackson go in free agency. I think the Steelers got to stop with the 1 year stopgap at cornerback. I think the Steelers need to go get guys that are going to be here for a while. So I think they address it in free agency and also in the draft. I don't think they do it in the first 2 rounds, but maybe the third. Maybe the third. I don't think you can let it go too far after the 3rd round, though, because they got to address it. They've got to address it. Steelers have holes, man. They got holes. So we'll see. We will see. So, all right, man. I appreciate y'all being here tonight. Thank you guys. As always, remember tomorrow, the big show with Big G is coming up. So make sure you guys are there. 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 Central. Make sure you guys show up and show out like you always do. I appreciate you guys, and I will talk to you then. Aloha.